this video catches us on the road. We're actually going to the KickBack show, and it's a KickBack Behind Bars is at Gloucester Prison. We think it's a long way, so we're going to use the campervan and have a night over on the way.
It's actually not as bad as I thought, this campervan in.
There were bikes arriving all day and you could have had a full show just watching outside. I was surprised at first because I thought a lot of the show was going to be outside, and I thought if it was raining this would have been an issue. However, it was spread all over the prison. There were choppers and there were 70s and 80s iron. I really liked looking at this bike. At the moment I'm into CX500s, although I've never bought one. And I particularly liked this one, although Young Gun didn't think much of the engine colour. He's still into his four-wheeled BMWs, as you can imagine. There were choppers in corridors, and 70s and 80s ride-to-work bikes that had been turned into phenomenal creations. Some of the engineering that had gone on were absolutely amazing. Spent a while chatting to the owner of this bike. He's put about 2,000 hours, he said. I thought it'd be more than that, into the engineering on this. It's an 883 Harley engine, but I think nearly everything else had been created by himself. I particularly liked the braking system. That's the front and rear brake, which is working from your foot. This person seems to have his own autoclave to be doing things in carbon fibre. I'm not even sure what some of the parts of this did. I think this might have been a setup for when they're doing the tours, but there was still all of the netting and all of the cells were running, looked pretty much like they had been. And in the corridors in between were all the custom bikes. I like this one because it's got the same seat as I'm putting on my Cafe Racer build at the moment, although the light sticks out a bit more. I might copy that idea if I can, because I think it looks so much better, and I do like the upholstery. We didn't realise this was Skid's bike, Henry Cole's mate. We see him on some of the TV programmes. I really like this, and the Young Gun really liked it as well. There's some really neat touches, but one of the things I really love is the crackle paint on the tank. I really like this effect. I'm not sure how you get it. I'm not even sure if I would even try to get it, but it's well worth having a look at. Some bikes wouldn't have been out of place at a classics show. It's only when you started looking a little bit closer that you could see all the custom parts and efforts that the people who'd made them had gone to. Not quite sure what they were doing with this tank though. But a B31 BSA engine and an AJS, I think 350 or 500cc previously from a Jam Pot wouldn't be out of place. And of course there's the ubiquitous Harleys, and this is a 750 WLA model, and it's really done very nicely. I had a quick chat with the guy who'd done that, and he's doing bikes for lots of people. I always like the look of these Royal Enfield Interceptor engines, so to see this one done as a sort of street style cafe type bike really was nice, and I thought there were some very nice touches. I really liked the paintwork in the seat. We saw this bike, and I think this somebody had made everything here from scratch. Big respect to the kind of thing that people can do in the sheds, even carving their own seat out. The engine was, well, the whole bike was a work of art. I was amazed by the front brake, which was a 4 leading shoe drum brake, and the mechanism was a miracle. This guy should have been working for the British bike industry back in the 60s. Never forgetting, it is a prison. Lots of bars, lots of cells. No place like home, he was thinking. The different bikes that had been used so that people could make customs was absolutely astonishing. I was looking at this Laverda Triple. It was the 120 engine, and it was, you know, a great retro model, retro styling. So it was the 6-cylinder Kawasaki 1300. What a massive engine, and only a minimal bike around it now. Some bikes have obviously been made for particular events. I think this is perhaps a hill climber or something like that. Looking at this Triumph, we'd just been to the Triumph experience, and that could have been a standard model. I think this is in the style of a Brus Superior, but probably not worth quite as much. Everybody's favourite ride to work bike. Couriers in the 80s and 90s really loved them. CCMs, they look great all the time, and some of the custom parts on this. I always loved the big old Triumphs, the John Blow ones that first came out, and this is a good take on, I think it's the big 4-cylinder one. Now here were some bikes from the Speed Shop, and I think a couple of the guys that had been in the show, it's a BBC show, it was well worth a watch. There were a couple of Harleys with 38 marked on them, not quite sure what that was about, the 38. Talking to this guy, he made one thing out of chain links and then got a bit carried away. He actually said that the bike as it stands was lighter than the original bike was, which is amazing. There was even a scooter. Back outside, there was a Boxer twin that was done in Ford Gulf colours. I've got a real soft spot for Harley shovelheads. I've had one. It wasn't the world's best bike to ride, but it was godlike in the way it looked and sounded. This was another of those bikes with 38 on it. I'm not quite sure what it meant. And there was a Marmite bike that some may like and some not. This is using the BMW colouring on the 70s flat 3-cylinder bike. And this Sus Honda must have got quite a few comments. I like the XS650 engine. This looks good in the seat, in the Rickman frame. And you see quite a few of these small Hondas. Part of the styling harks back to the retro style of it, and part of it's sort of cafe street tracker style. I think they look really nice. Now look, that's Kawasaki on the tank. The more you looked at this bike, the more you spotted it had parts from many other bikes, Suzuki's and Yamahas. Another on my list of bikes to own, an XT500, and its 30-year predecessor, the BSA, I think it's 350 or a 400. Outside were some very interesting bikes, based on all kinds of engines. I saw this one in Repsol colours. I think it's an Africa twin. Looked really good. Another CX500. And XS650s, they must be on my list of bikes to own. Every time I see one, I really like the look of them, and the engine just lends itself to doing something, making a bike look good. Well, that's us on our way out. We've actually really enjoyed this show. It's been a great venue. The weather's been kind, so it's just a long schlep back now, about 4 or 5 hours. Let's see how that goes.